again, we've talked about this ad nauseum. If you would have told us, we talked about it on the first show of the season, hey, what's the goal? The goal is be in the hunt in December, play meaningful games down the stretch. The Jets did that. This was the first week that this game did not matter for the playoffs. But again, to start 5-2, 6-3, 7-4, and finish 7-10 and miss the playoffs, it feels very different than it probably should. So, Willie, overall, what's your big takeaway from this season, this group?
I mean, we've hit it time after time. You know, this team is ahead of schedule in a lot of different areas. The main area that they need to be right on par with is the quarterback position, and it's not. And I think that it's a direct linear lead to why they're not going to the playoffs. If you have a competent, more efficient quarterback who can win you games ugly, the Jets are in a better place right now, but they're not. And so we have to accept that. I think overall, when you look at this team, you got to admit that they did fight on the road. They had a lot of significant road wins. They played well on defense. They kept them in a lot of games. Offensively, I felt their offensive line, their age showed late in the season. Running from a running back position, you know, once Brees went down, it was like you could see the decline of the offense, and that hurt us. But overall, we were still much into it in a good portion of the season. I think this Jets team, and I've said this last week, I just don't want them to fall victim into the narrative of the same old damn Jets, right? Like that can't happen. They've earned the right and they've earned the league's respect to get better. Now, what happens with Zach Wilson in the future, that's gonna play itself out. But I want this team to be motivated, passionate about the offseason, and really have a chip on their shoulder about going into next season. Because they did blow it. And you hear Garrett Wilson say it last week, we blew an opportunity. It feels like we blew an opportunity, and here we are, really feeding into the narrative that the Jets are going to be the Jets forever. And that has to stop. And then they can't let that fester into the offseason, and they got to be passionate all the way through. But they have a young nucleus. They got a great core guys. They just got to be able to build on it.
Absolutely. And right after quarterback, they have to answer some serious questions about the offensive line that'll be protecting whichever quarterback is here, because they could not run the ball effectively for the last, felt like, 5 weeks. They couldn't get to 4 yards per carry. No matter who they turned around to hand the ball to, they couldn't pass protect. And there's questions across the board. Who's going to be this team's starting left tackle next year? The Laken Tomlinson signing at left guard has not worked out. Connor McGovern, the center, is a free agent. Hopefully AVT is back to start training camp. And where's he going to play? Right guard, right tackle, left tackle. That's only one spot. And there are question marks. You're going to have Becton probably competing with Max Mitchell on the right side, I would assume. But there are a lot of question marks on this offensive line. And the identity of this team, I don't care if it's Jimmy G, Derek Carr, Zach Wilson again, Mike White, you have to run the football. And this offensive line down the stretch, you got hit with injuries. Everybody does. It wasn't good enough.
Breece Hall, just quick, because it's to both of your points. Breece Hall got injured in Week 7. And he finishes the season as the Jets' leading rusher with 463 yards. That just goes to show you how much of a drop-off there was after Breece went out, and that was both a product of the running back caliber and the offensive line play.
And AVT got hurt right behind him, too.
It's the same thing. Yep, absolutely.
After that.
And that's what it is, right? You know, building the foundation. This team was supposed to be built in the trenches, right? And, you know, they have to find a way to get quality depth and get younger at the position. You know, we appreciate and admire what Dwayne Brown was able to offer us, but when you talk about older players, they can't finish, right? They have to be on a pitch count. And you can't bring him back. You have to find somebody that's in their prime, ready to go. And you will hope that would be Mekhi Becton. Hell, he's had 2 years off. You would hope he can come back and find a way to stay healthy. But then that's a wish. You believe that Max Mitchell, and that was, you know, something that was unfortunate, you know, the blood clots, but you hope that he can come back and be able to compete. But they're going to have to figure out how to get them a young, effective center as well. You see what, you know, Kansas City was able to do with Creed Humphreys. You see what the Lindenbaum, you know, this year. You know, that's one of the most important, because he's the quarterback of your offensive line. So if you want to be able to support who's ever behind there, you have to go out and address that position at a high level. Somebody that's going to be here for the next 4 to 5 years that can grow with this young team. You know, you got Becton, who's at the right age. You got Veer Tucker, who's at the right age. Langston Tomlins is supposed to be that veteran, you know, that comes in, that kind of solidifies the offensive line, calms them down. But you got to go out and you got to get some depth. And it's not that many options when you think about free agency coming up. You know, that's got to be, I think, assignment number one. Assignment number two is what you do with, you know, C.J. Mosley and trying to be able to redo his deal. You have big decisions when you think about Corey Davis and you think about Carl Lawson. If you're going to allow Huff, you know, to really be able to get more playing time, be a bigger role, and you got to consider, you know, being able to let Jermaine Johnson be a starter next year, which means that you may not have a position or a starting position that you need to give Carl Lawson, which saves you about $30 million on the salary cap.